Okay, I'm excited about this next one. Please welcome to the mic, keep the love and enthusiasm really high from Manasi.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I've come to open mic quite a few times over the last few months. But this is the first time I've mustered up the courage to actually talk to you today.
Yeah!
You go, woman!
So today I thought, is this working?
Yeah.
Today I thought I'd share with you my experiences of being an Indian Australian living in Nepal. I thought you might find this interesting because many of you are either Nepali or foreigners and probably haven't had some of the experiences I've had before. So I'll start from my childhood. So growing up in an Indian family in Australia, I was always aware of what it felt to be different to my peers. Everything from the food I used to bring to school, to the accent my parents had, to the language my grandparents used to speak at home when they visited from India, was not what people were used to. Being a kid, I longed to fit in, and often resented my Indian heritage for making me stand out from other people. As I got older and I went to high school, I realised that my Indian upbringing was influencing how I thought and behaved. I took on the more conservative values that my parents had brought with them from India, around drinking, around studying, and around boys. And despite having quite a multicultural group of friends, my different values were a constant reminder that I didn't quite entirely fit in. I didn't have the same upbringing as white Australians, and they couldn't always understand me. Being Australian and being lucky enough to be able to travel to India and many other countries when growing up gave me the desire to work overseas. I had no expectation about where I would go, but fate would have it that I would come to Nepal. I didn't really realise how significant this decision would be until quite recently. Initially, when I came to Nepal, I thought because I was already familiar with South Asian culture that I would fit in here quite easily, but I was actually a bit mistaken. From the day I got here and pretty much every day since, I always get asked or I'm told, "Tapai Nepali hoina, tapai Nepali jasto dekhnecha," which means you're not Nepali but you look Nepali. People don't really understand how I can look Nepali and not really be Nepali. I also noticed from the start that people were staring at me. The stares increased especially if I was alone with a white foreigner male or if I was out with my foreigner friends drinking, because I don't think Nepali girls drink as much as I do. Unlike other foreigners who probably don't even notice these things, because of my upbringing I could understand why they thought my behaviour was a bit weird. I also began to feel the frustrations that other foreigners did, around different working styles and particular cultural norms that we're not used to in Australia. So I realised that the advantages I had of having an Indian upbringing and going to India so many times didn't entirely extend to all my experiences here. And at the end of the day, I was still reminded that I was a foreigner. So during these first few months, I felt caught between the expectations and the norms of two different cultures, and I was unable to reconcile them. So over the next few months, I started learning Nepali, and my ability to communicate with people increased a lot and opened up many new doors. So I've been able to conceal my foreigner identity and have some experiences that other foreigners probably haven't been able to have. For example, when I've been with my local colleagues, I can get into Kathmandu and Bhaktapur, Durbar squares without paying. When I go to Tamil, I never get harassed by anyone, which is great. These experiences have made me start to feel a bit more local and see the advantages of not obviously standing out for how I look like I would as a minority in Australia. My recent trip to Everest Base Camp and Kogekar Lakes further made this clear. Unlike other foreigners who normally travel in big groups and sit away from the guides and porters in their tea houses, Because I travelled by myself, I hung out a lot with my guide and got to talk a lot with him and his friends. This enabled me to experience a more local side of the trekking experience. Hanging out with the guides, I learned a lot about which cultures they like the most and which they like the least. Apparently, they don't really like Israelis that much. No offence if any of you are Israeli. And the difficulties they experienced. And I also got to learn a lot about their different cultures like Sherpa and Tamang. For me, this felt like a more authentic culture experience than I would have had I been white or had I been travelling with a big group of people. This feeling of fitting in and belonging continued afterwards when my cousin visited from India. Along with the other perks of looking local that I mentioned before, when we attended a momo making class, we were lucky enough to be invited to our teacher's house to celebrate Tiha with her afterwards. The experience of eating, drinking and dancing with a local Nawari family was one of the best experiences I've had here. But as our teacher admitted, this invitation was only extended to us because we had a shared culture and heritage. The other people in our momo making class, who happened to be Israeli, weren't invited to the teacher's house. So from my experiences here over the last few months, I've learned that rather than trying to deny my identity or see it as a burden as I did whilst I was growing up, or trying to fit it into some sort of box, as I did when I was younger, to embrace the flexibility it gives me to adapt to different situations. Because of my Indian heritage, my experiences have definitely allowed me to discover a bit more of my roots. So much so that being here now feels like home and I'm considering staying here longer term. So, by the way, I'm an Australian volunteer and I'm only supposed to be here for a year. So who knows, maybe you'll see me here next year, talking about what it is like to be an Indian Australian living in Nepal longer term. That's it.
Brothers and sisters, one more time for Manasi!